Hello, John.
Hi.
Could you give me a brief history on the club? How long since it's been formed and how it was formed?
Yes, it was formed in 1969. Been going ever since. It's had one name change, and it was really based on the 100Es before it encompassed all the older cars. So we actually look after cars now from 1932 to 62. So that's all the cars with the Ford Sidevalve engine in, and the last few prefects had the later engine from the 105E. I think the club has got around about 11 to 1200 members annually. We've got our own premises, we've got spare parts, we've got a very good magazine that a lot of people find really useful, and we've also got local meetings all over the country. I think we've probably got about 20 local groups, so people aren't usually too far away from a local meeting to find out, what they need to find out about their car.
So what about new members and young new members?
Well, we're looking into that right at the moment. We've had lots of discussion. We've got some young members we're actually canvassing to see what they want. But we've actually started looking at more the middle agers, the sort of 45 to 55-year-olds, because we think they're more likely to take over from us older guys that sort of started the club. So we're actually looking at those, but we're also looking to encourage the youngsters. But I think our cars don't necessarily appeal to the very young drivers at the minute. The 100Es might be, if they're lightly hot-rodded, warmed up a little bit, which can obviously cause problems with the more traditional members of the club. But we actually have a history as a club of modified cars. So if you actually look back at our early days in the 60s and 70s, most of those cars were warmed up in some way or another. So that's what we're looking at, really, is to get younger blood into the club, yes, like most other clubs.
Because what has been talking about other clubs is that the price of the cars has gone up so much as well, which is another thing that's put young members off.
Not a problem with these. These cars are not that expensive. You can buy a really nice example of one of these for about £3,500 to £4,500. You can buy a solid car for about £1,000, £1,500 to do up. And so that's not the major problem. I think one of the problems is, for a lot of enthusiasts, is actually getting insurance when you're under 25. And then somewhere to store it is another problem, because they don't normally have their own house with their own garage. Dad might have something else in the garage. But I think also what I find as an ex-teacher is that a lot of younger people don't actually have the skills to maintain even these simple cars that we all expected and grew up with.
The 5-year apprenticeship.
Yes, I mean, all of that hasn't gone, and of course a lot of dads now who are in, what would we say, the 45, 55-year-old age group, they probably don't also have some of those skills, especially if they're not massively interested in old cars. So it's really for the granddads to pass it on, and that's why we're trying to encourage youngsters now for us to pass it on while we're still with it, to actually pass those skills on to them so that they can appreciate these cars.
So what about the show itself? Is that being beneficial to you?
Yes, it is. We pick up new members. We got a lot of interest, and we've been doing this show ever since it started. And it's always been very, very useful to us. Basically just the hands-on experience with something we're doing now with an engine, for people to come along and have a peer at and ask questions. We find it's a great way of actually meeting potential members, and we do pick up members here.
What about the car right at the very end, the white, the cream-coloured one? What model is that?
That's a 100E estate, which looks very much like the van of the period, but it's obviously quite luxurious for the time. It's got plenty of chrome. It's got nice seats, folding seats. It's got a tailgate at the back, and they're very, very popular, but quite rare these days, because they were used, I think, as company cars and family runabouts, and they probably got the hardest time. But those cars are worth quite a lot of money. Probably, what should we say, £7,500 to £8,500 for a really nice one. But they still turn up in barns. There's always hope for anybody, and there are plenty of these cars made.
Yes.
So that I think there's something for everybody. Even the Ford Specials that were made in the 50s and 60s, the cheap man sports car. They used all this running gear. That's a very popular part of the movement. We have a lot of members who've got those sorts of things. But yeah, it's been what is it now? 1969 to now. Quite a long time. I've been a member almost from the start of that.
What about body panels?
You can't get those. They're either going to be second-hand. You can get some things remade. You can get repair panels made for these, in particular, these upright models. Front and rear wings you can get made, but they can't get the gauge that Ford used, and they haven't got the treatment that Ford used to make them withstand stone chips coming through from the inside out. So that's a problem. With the 100E range, you've got repair panels, sills, bits and pieces like that, wheel arches, the usual stuff. You can get those. Front wings that bolt on, they're not that easily available. Certainly can't get new ones. But people make do and mend.
Yeah.
You know, if it's really that much of a problem, you can get fiberglass replicas to keep you going for the minute until you find
For the time being.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for all the information, John. Thanks for the interview.
Thank you.